Hey, hello, folks. Today's episode is brought to you by Manakora honey. I have trouble pronouncing it. It shouldn't be a surprise. But the bottom line is this is an amazing honey. Now, when I say the word honey to you, you probably think about that stuff that comes in like the little panda bottle at the supermarket. And maybe it's from
panda?
Yeah, it's a panda,
grizzly
right?
bear or whatever it is. It doesn't
Bears
matter.
are associated with honey.
A lot of times they don't even know where that honey comes from. But aside from that, this is a completely different species of honey. Manakora makes Manuka honey. It is a super honey that comes from New Zealand. There is a specific tree, the Manuka tea tree, and it's the nectar on this tree in which the bees make the honey from. Now, I've always been aware that, different like beekeepers will wait for certain plants and this and that or weeds to come or flowers so that their honey has a specific taste. I've never tasted anything like this honey before. You can use the honey just in a normal way. Use it on toast or on in your tea or something like that. However, not only does this honey sort of have the consistency of caramel and sort of almost like a caramel taste, it also has a high preponderance of this natural bacteria called MGO. I used to know what the name of it was, what that stands for, but it has a tremendous optimal immune impact and digestive health. Extremely healthy for you. And the 850 plus, that's 850 plus MGO honey, like I say, has this creamy caramel texture. It melts in your mouth. It really is unlike anything you have ever experienced before. Put it on your cereal, whatever it is. My kids love it. It's amazing. You don't need to use nearly as much as you would with regular honey because it is like so dense and it's delicious. If you head to manakora.com/majority right now, or once you get there, use the code majority, you'll automatically get an extra free pack of 850 plus honey sticks with your order. It's a $15 value. The extra pack of compostable honey sticks, perfect for your kids' lunch or put in your bag. You need a little pick-me-up when you go. You can bring them when you're traveling. They're fantastic. That is Manukora, Manukora, manukora.com/majority, or use the code majority to get a free pack of compostable honey sticks with your order. I'm telling you, you have not seen or tasted honey like this before. Indulge. Try some honey with superpowers from Manakora. Now time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live. Steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Murtaza Hussain, reporter at the Intercept, focusing on national security and foreign policy, on the secret Pakistan cable documents. I should say the secret Pakistan cable, which documents U.S. pressure to remove former PM Imran Khan. Also on the program today, 4 times a charm. Donald Trump indicted on 13 charges trying to overturn the Georgia election loss. Meanwhile, 18 Trump allies will join him at the defendant's table, unless, of course, they don't want to join him in jail. Montana judge rules in favor of Montana youth's climate case, which is going to force Montana to consider climate change when it assesses environmental permits. Federal judge blocks conservative challenge to Biden's forgiveness of debt for 800,000 borrowers. That's the smaller program. The AMPTP floats another offer that it supposedly made to the WGA, hoping to undermine their solidarity. Meanwhile, in Chicago, SEIU healthcare workers win their 11-day strike. Death toll in Hawaii wildfires hits 99, with hundreds still missing. And dropping in the polls, DeSantis cucks and begs Disney to drop its lawsuit versus Florida.
Whoopsie.
Let's let bygones be bygones.
Hey guys, I'm trying to run for president. Okay, you guys take it easy.
You get it.
Russia attacks western Ukraine with missiles, killing at least 3. New data shows unhoused numbers up by 11% from 2022, a record rate of increase. And another new study shows that over 70% of U.S. household COVID spread, which represented about 16% of all COVID spread, was started with children. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is, says Emma Vigeland.
Says Newsday Tuesday.
It is Newsday Tuesday.
Yes.
With that said, we also,
Yeah.
and also an interview day.
Also, yeah, true, actually. Breaking format slightly, but I thought that kids just didn't get COVID and didn't spread
Send
it.
them back. That teachers union, they're really fear-mongered by Fauci. So get these kids back in school and get them learning.
The household spread, we should be clear, which again represents, as far as I can tell from these papers, 16% of all the spread that we saw was initiated by children. 70% of that was initiated by, and particularly young children, maybe ones who, let's think about it, wouldn't have worn masks as competently as maybe older kids, would have been probably confined indoors in a much more extensive way. This is all, none of these things are conclusive. It's done by having hundreds of thousands of people having temperature sensors on their phones and assessing, who gets a fever first. But this is what the data suggests by the researchers, who seem to have really have a huge number of people involved in this research. But we'll get to that later. Donald Trump indicted again. This was, 6 months out. This was the one that everybody was sort of waiting for, because it could very well be the most threatening to Donald Trump. It feels like Jack Smith was able to build a case that I think people thought didn't realize would be as strong on the federal level. But this is a racketeering, a RICO case that involves, like I said, I guess a total of 19 people,
Yeah, 18
including
allies of Trump plus him. And then there's 30 extra unnamed co-conspirators, and unindicted ones. But the ones that are named are Giuliani, Sidney
well,
Powell,
she's going to go through
Jeff
this
Clark.
in just a second.
Yeah.
But I just want to remind people what you need to bring a RICO case. And I should just say that the DA in this, who brought this case, Fannie Willis, she was also the DA. I don't know if people will remember this. I do. In 2015, and maybe it was in 2014, through those 2 years, there was a big scandal with a Georgia public school. This was in the heart of the corporate education reform movement, where high stakes testing for kids became the sort of law of the land, if you will. And it created a tremendous amount of pressure on schools to deliver high test scores. And it was inevitable that there was going to be a cheating when you make this that important. And she brought the case, a racketeering case that 11 of whom Atlanta public schools educators were convicted of racketeering charges. And I say that only because of the ding-dongs on the right who are going to be talking about like, well, how can it be illegal to call somebody or whatever it is that they're going to say? It's not illegal to do any of the individual things that these teachers did in that case 7 or 8 years ago. But when people conspire to pursue a single goal and then do things in concert in pursuit of that goal that is illegal, those become the foundations of a RICO case.
And Rudy Giuliani, pretty familiar with the foundations of RICO cases,
Exactly.
given how he got famous in the 80s by prosecuting mob families under that very statute in New York. So full circle.
Some of the counts stem from false claims of election fraud that Giuliani and 2 other Trump lawyers, Shealy and Ray Smith, made at legislative hearings in December 2020. You'll recall that. Their testimony was false. And because they were doing that in concert with these other people to bring about an overturning of the Georgia election, that becomes part of the RICO case. Another batch of charges was a plan that Trump supporters carried out to vote for a false slate of pro-Trump electors and send a forged document to Congress. A third group of charges accuses Trump allies of conspiring to steal voter data and tamper with voting equipment at the elections office in Coffee County, Georgia, and some of the defendants were charged in connection with a scheme to harass and intimidate an election worker. Ruby Friedman, we're going to have more on that later in the program. And so that's where it is. Here is a clip of Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis announcing that those indictments.
Specifically, the indictment brings felony charges against Donald John Trump, Rudolph William Louis Giuliani, John Charles Eastman, Mark Randall Meadows, John Cheeseborough, Jeffrey Clark, Jenna Lynn Ellis, Ray Stallings Smith III, Robert David Cheeley, Michael A. Roman, David James Schaefer, Sean Micah Tresher Steele, Stephen Cliffgard Lee, Harrison William Prescott Floyd, Travion C. Cootie, Sydney Catherine Powell, Kathleen Austin Latham, Scott Graham Hall, and Misty Hampton, also known as Emily Misty Hayes. Every individual charged in the indictment is charged with 1 count of violating Georgia's Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act through participation in a criminal enterprise in Fulton County, Georgia, and elsewhere to accomplish the illegal goal of allowing Donald J. Trump to seize the presidential term of office beginning on January 20th, 21.
I mean, there it is. This is this again, she prosecuted this RICO case with the 11 educators. I guess so 12 educators, 11 I think got convicted. All of them were involved in basically an enterprise with one goal. That was to overturn the results in Georgia with the purpose of overturning the results of the national election. And different people participated in different capacities. And the big thing, of course, is you've got 18 defendants. It's possible all 18 are going to be like, it's ride or die with Donald Trump.
People,
Right.
I got the best people. You're all going to shut up, right?
Yes, exactly. No reason for you to say anything.
Except that I thought I won and was doing my best because I thought I won.
Just do my best. It's a lot of lawyers' bills that he would have to pay for those 18 people, plus the 30 other unindicted co-conspirators who might be speaking behind the scenes, right?
Somebody said something to somebody. Here is Donald Trump reacting to his fourth indictment on Truth Social. And here's what he had to say. A large, complex, detailed, but irrefutable report on the presidential election fraud, which took place in Georgia, is almost complete. It will be presented by me at a major news conference on 11 a.m. of Monday next week in Bedminster. Wait a second. So he's going to present it.
He has a report. He has a book report.
Look, I'm just doing the proofreading now. Okay.
Are we supposed to be making something from like the capitalization of a large and the complex and detailed and irrefutable?
I don't think so.
LCDI. LCDI, ladies and gentlemen. That's for my QAnon people. I don't know what that means. I didn't realize he's putting out a report. He's putting out a report saying that it's irrefutable the election was stolen. And based on the results of this conclusive report, all charges should be dropped against me and others. There'll be a complete exoneration. They never went after those that rigged the election. They only went after those that fought to find the riggers.
Little.
They only went after
Little
those
too
that
close.
fought to find the riggers. We're part of the rigger patrol.
I know. He went. It's a little too
I
easy
think
for him.
I'm going to suspend judgment. I'm going to wait until he presents evidence.
I think we need to see the report.
We
I
need
mean,
to
let's
see
be honest. And I'm going to present it where all major reports should be. The golf club.
Yes.
So that it has a lot of integrity.
Is that the same golf club that recently his ex-wife's grave is completely overrun with weeds? That's what people
I got
have
the
been
perfect
saying?
spot
Bedminster.
to put the stage.
It's going to be, well, people are going to have to play through because we're
Just place your own
stopping
divots
on
in
the
there.
ninth hole to release the report.
It's a little bumpy. It's a
irrefutable.
little bumpy on the green.
I don't pay the groundskeeper to go over there, okay? So fix your own divot.
Here's the thing. I mean, I don't even know why I need to say this, but let's say the report was irrefutable. Let's just for a moment
Sure,
say
sure.
the report is irrefutable. Even armed with an irrefutable report, you'll recall there were multiple attempts to pursue a reversal of the election on a state-by-state basis through state courts. Giuliani and the whole crew were involved in them, and they were laughed out of every single court. You cannot illegally pursue a goal, even if you think that the election was actually stolen. That is not. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter if Donald Trump really believed the election was stolen. I can really believe that Matt, took my hard-boiled eggs from the refrigerator. Really believe it. It's mine. I can't go beat him up to get it.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to do that.
Gone.
Even if you have an irrefutable report.
I have an irrefutable report that shows that Matt took my hard-boiled eggs for my lunch today, and therefore I beat him up.
Well, yeah, it's like there's the claim, and then there's how you go about proving it. And there were channels to deal with this, and one of those isn't inciting a riot at the Capitol when Mike Pence is trying to.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just arguing about means now.
We should change the name of the show to The Irrefutable.
You guys are just tone policing me and my father.
Tone policing. All right, we got a couple of sponsors, and then we'll be talking to Murtaza Hussain. He and Ryan Grimm did a story. They got a hold of a leaked memo written by Pakistani officials outlining a conversation they had with the U.S. ambassador to Pakistan regarding Imran Khan. We'll talk to him in a moment. He's a reporter at the Intercept who focuses on national security and foreign policy. But first, a word from one of our sponsors today. I really don't need to say much about this product. I have it here beside me literally every day I do this show. I don't think there's been a day that I have done this show in 3 or 4 years where I have not had a bottle that the bottle I got myself. That's not theirs. It is Liquid IV.
Yeah.
That's what's in. Yes, it's Liquid IV in there. It is the #1 powdered hydration brand in America, and I almost felt like there's nothing new to say, but there is actually, because now they have sugar-free flavors.
Whoa.
Years in the making, a hydration multiplier sugar-free uses a proprietary zero sugar hydration solution with no artificial sweeteners. It has 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. It has 8 vitamins and nutrients for everyday wellness. Liquid IV hydrates you 2 times faster than water alone. They have 3 new sugar-free flavors. Right now, white peach, green grape, lemon lime. All 3 delicious. From my experience, I still, not gonna lie, still I'm on a tangerine immunity. They have one that's immunity kick. I've been on this for months and months, I think. I switched over from my green matcha for energy. Maybe because I'm feeling so hydrated, I don't need the energy anymore. I don't know. But also, I've been playing around with the sugar-free ones, and I love them all so far. I also love the pina colada. I mean,
strawberry's good.
Caught in the rain.
But the amazing thing about Liquid IV, I mean, the things I love about it, obviously it's the hydration. Gets me to drink a lot of water. I do it. It keeps me hydrated during the show. But it's also I can keep up that habit when I travel. Comes in these very convenient packs. I can bring it along with me if Saul and I are doing an outing out on the town. He's getting dehydrated. He likes to wear a hoodie too often. He sweats he just pours out sweat. I buy a bottle of water. I pour it in. Bingo, bango. So I don't have to get any of that junky stuff. It's all non-GMO, free from gluten, dairy, and soy. And a good thing about Liquid IV as a company, they believe equitable access to clean and abundant water is the foundation of a healthier world. They partner with leading organizations to fund and foster innovative solutions that help communities both protect their water and their futures. And Liquid IV has donated over 39 million servings in 50 countries around the world to keep people hydrated. Real people, real flavor, real hydrating. Now, sugar-free. Grab your Liquid IV hydration multiplier sugar-free in bulk nationwide at Costco, or get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code MajorityRep. Not Majority Report, Majority Rep at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you use the promo code Majority Rep at liquidiv.com. Also, where are you going to get your health advice these days? Everybody seems to have some, but if you want to take a vitamin or a series of vitamins, and you want to know what's the best quality and where it's sourced, it's all about Ritual. Ritual's multivitamin for men is based on science that will help fill common nutrient gaps in the diet and level up your nutrient goals. It is an all-around win. For me, I've been taking Ritual now for at least a couple of years as well. Here's the key for me. I mean, in addition to the fact that like I want to know where my vitamins are sourced, that makes a big deal. There's a lot of products that come from different countries that have different types of problems in terms of like regulations, or maybe they're growing stuff in certain areas that used to have, pesticides or whatever it is. But the real thing for me, I mean, that's good. I feel much more confident about that. But the real thing for me is that it's on a subscription basis. So I used to take a multivitamin. I would take it, religiously day in, day out. And then all of a sudden I would finish the bottle and then I would forget to do it. And then I would break the habit and that's it. But for me, that is a big win with Ritual. Ritual is your new type of two-a-days. Helps you support heart health with omega-3 DHA to normal muscle function and normal immune function with vitamin D3. This small step can have a major impact. I will say this, my D levels, that was always the one that I was deficient in because apparently it's there's a prostate issue when you get to be my age. I mean, not an issue. I think cancer. There's some... Anyways, my D levels are good. I don't want to get into that. They also are... they produce like I say, clean vitamins in bioavailable forms, vegan-friendly, non-GMO, sugar-free, gluten-free, major allergen-free. And again, they're traceable. So you know where all of these elements come from. They have a minty essence in every bottle, keeps the things fresh. Essential for Men is a quality multivitamin from a company that you can actually trust. And you get this. Ritual offering our listeners 30% off during your first month. Visit Ritual, RITUAL.com/majority to start Ritual or add Essential for Men to your subscription today. We will post the link in the podcast and YouTube descriptions today. Quick break. We'll be right back with Murtaza Hussain. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Pleasure to welcome back to the program Murtaza Hussain. He's a reporter at The Intercept, focusing on national security and foreign policy. Murtaza, you and Ryan Grimm wrote a piece last week about a cable that was an internal document in the Pakistani government that was outlining a meeting with Pakistani officials and the U.S. ambassador to Pakistan, and this is back in 2022. Give us the outlines of the story here.
Yeah, actually, the meeting was between State Department officials and the Pakistani ambassador to the U.S. at that time. And this conversation has really been at the center of a political crisis in Pakistan over the past year and a half, since the removal of former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan. Mr. Khan has alleged that this document, known as a cipher internally in Pakistan, and basically a diplomatic table, showed a conversation between U.S. officials and their Pakistani counterparts where the U.S. side pressured Pakistan to remove Imran Khan at that time. There was, around this time, it was about March 2022, talk of a no confidence vote against his government. And Mr. Khan had said that U.S. officials effectively threatened Pakistan, that if you don't remove him from power in this vote, you're going to be in big trouble. And if you do remove him, we're going to have a lot of positive things to say about you. And the quote he used was, all will be forgiven, in terms of some turbulence in the relationship that then developed over his tenure. So this document has been the subject of unbelievable amounts of partisan debate and conspiracy and denials in Pakistan over the last year and a half. And just last week, for the first time, we actually were able to show what this document said. And I think in summary, what I would say is that actually confirms a lot of what Mr. Khan has been alleging. In this document, as reported by the Pakistani side, Mr. Khan the U.S. threatened that if Mr. Khan was not removed from power, there would be a lot of problems for Pakistan. They used the term isolation. And they specifically verbatim said that if he's removed, all will be forgiven. So effectively, U.S. officials told the Pakistanis that nice country you got there, shame something happened to it. And this document, which has been, top secret inside Pakistan, and a lot of people have been threatened, allegedly killed, and disappeared over its existence, has now come to light.
All right. Before we get to the document itself, let's go back and talk about what's happened over the past year and a half or so since that no confidence vote. But prior to that, I mean, and this centers around specifically this conversation was about the neutrality that that Pakistan had, in the words of, I guess, this U.S. State Department official, aggressively pursued this neutrality. That Imran Khan had also traveled to Russia in a pre-planned trip right at the time of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So this is really ostensibly around the neutrality and the optics of Khan having traveled there. Give us a sense about Imran Khan, broadly speaking, like prior to this, aside from U.S. interest. What was Khan's relationship to the Pakistani people, and I think even from what I can read here, the Pakistani military, because that seems to be the driving force behind this, and the U.S. seems to have been sort of a partner in the project to get rid of Imran Khan.
Yeah, it's very important to note that Imran Khan's political career effectively started in opposition to U.S. drone strikes in Pakistan about a decade or so ago. He was, of course, a very famous private citizen in Pakistan. He was a philanthropist and a cricket player. And this issue of what he deemed foreign intervention in Pakistan's affairs, very harmful foreign intervention, really was what launched his political career and made him a player in Pakistani politics some years ago. And this theme in his, public statements, in his governing as prime minister, has been very consistent. He's been very averse to what he sees as Western and specifically U.S. interference in Pakistan. And he's been trying to chart what he deems a neutral course for Pakistani foreign policy. He's been alleging that other Pakistani leaders, and more obliquely some military leaders, have acted effectively as stooges of U.S. foreign policy and have not exerted meaningful independence. And his view is that this has been very harmful to Pakistanis. So when the Ukraine war came about, he stated very publicly that we're going to be neutral in this conflict. We need to buy energy from Russia. We also need to have a good relationship with Europe and the United States, but we're not going to side with any one side. We're not going to join any alliance. And it's not dissimilar to what India has done. India has also taken a similar, very resolutely neutral policy on Ukraine. Imran Khan said more or less the same. And the trip to Moscow does appear, as he said, to have been planned beforehand, as opposed to being planned intentionally on the eve of the war, but certainly antagonized the U.S. side, as we see in this cable. And one thing that's amazing about this cable is that actually we had no idea that this dispute specifically was about Ukraine. People have described the context of this cable before. They've said that, yeah, maybe it was problematic, maybe it was threatening, but no one knew specifically it was about U.S. anger over Pakistan's neutral position in this conflict. So it really was consistent with Khan's whole political career, where he's been an advocate very vocally of what he deems of, Pakistani independence in foreign affairs. And then the same irritation and anger of U.S. officials was about that stance. So the revelation of the cable confirmed a lot of things people have been saying for many, many years, or alleging for many years, that this neutral, non-aligned policy of Pakistan is at the core of its dispute with the United States.
When I read this memo, and the memo is really interesting because it is an internal Pakistani memo. So there is no I don't know. I guess there could be interagency reasons in which to sort of hide true intentions and whatnot, but that would be, it seems odd. But there was one part where the author of this memo is, I told Don being Don Liu, the State Department official, I told Don Liu that we had seen his defense of the Indian position on the Ukraine crisis. Like you say, it's also neutrality. During the recently held Senate subcommittee hearing on U.S.-India relations, it seemed that the U.S. was applying different criteria for India and Pakistan. Don responded to U.S. lawmakers' strong feelings about India's abstentions in the UN the Security Council, and the UNGA came out clearly during the hearing. I said that from the hearing, it appeared that the U.S. expected more from India than Pakistan, yet it appeared to be more concerned about Pakistan's position. In other words, there is a sense, at least by the author of this, who was speaking to Don Liu, that it doesn't really track that you're this upset about our behavior when your expectations of India are higher and they've delivered the exact same thing. But your criticism of Pakistan, I mean, it appears to me that part of the U.S. position that this is about Ukraine is convenient on some level.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because India has resisted a lot of public pressure and I'm sure private pressure to align on a certain side in the Ukraine conflict, still buying Russian oil. Not condemning really in forthright terms the invasion. It is charting what you could say a non-aligned course in the conflict. And this goes back to a point you made earlier about the role of the Pakistani military. The Pakistani military is the most powerful force in Pakistani politics. It's even if their civilian leaders put up front, inevitably they're pulling the strings. And this tension between the civilian governing of Pakistan and the military governing has been the core sort of tension, you could say, in society since its independence 70 or years ago. And the Pakistani military is very dependent on U.S. support, economic support, political patronage. They want to have a very close relationship with the U.S. military. So it becomes a very effective lever on which to exert pressure on Pakistan over issues like this of foreign relations that does not exist in India. So if the U.S. wanted to go to the Indian military and signal, hey, maybe Modi or whoever else is in power is not doing what we want, you should do something about that, they don't really have the ability to do so. The Indian military is very firmly nationalized by the Indian state, whereas the Pakistani military is much more autonomous and values its relationship with the United States a lot more. It depends on it for economic purposes on a very baseline level. So, if the United States is frustrated with India, which I think it may be, they have limited options how to express that frustration. Whereas in Pakistan, because of the military, because of its strange role in Pakistani society, they can make their frustration much more, effectively felt in Pakistani society. And it's other countries. Egypt is a similar example like that. It's the role of militarization of politics, which has these unfortunate consequences of reducing independence.
Do we know? I mean, do you have a sense? I should say. I mean, because this is true. Like the U.S. military is famously sort of like has very close relationships with the Egyptian military. A lot of training of a lot of Egyptian, for instance, the military personnel have been trained in the U.S. I don't know if it's as many Pakistani military, but there's clearly very close relationship. Do you have a sense of which way this goes? I mean, and it's not mutually exclusive, but I mean, you've just expressed it in a way that the U.S. has more leverage because of its relationship with the military in Pakistan over Pakistani politics. But I also wonder if there's a relationship between Imran Khan and the Pakistani military where the pressure goes the other way, where you've got the U.S. State Department meeting with Pakistani officials days before the actual no confidence vote takes place. It's already in the air. Some of this feels to me like the U.S. coming in and saying, we're the final piece in the puzzle. Like, we're the straw or straws that are going to break the camel's back in this instance. And that may have also come from encouragement from the Pakistani military, which my understanding is their relationship with Khan had deteriorated.
That's very aptly put. So when this meeting took place, Imran Khan was already in a very tense position via his political rivals and the military, and they were mulling this no confidence vote beforehand. What I think happened, rather than the U.S. Ejecting him from power in a moment he was very secure, they effectively weighed in very strongly in an internal political debate inside Pakistan, which was already going on. And they put their weight on the scale very, very forthrightly on one side. And the way that Pakistan works, and I can think Egypt and other countries in similar situations work, is that the U.S. is effectively, in all but name, a part of the governing compact of the country. And their vote goes a very long way. So Donald Lu and the State Department could have said, Pakistani internal affairs are a matter for Pakistan. We hope for this relationship, X, Y, and Z. They didn't say that. They said that we have a very strong preference of who the next prime minister is. That it would not be this person. If it is, you're going to suffer X, Y, and Z consequences. And if he's not, then we'll have a more positive relationship. So they didn't hold back from expressing their own position and their own decisive view on how Pakistani politics should be structured. And unfortunately, it goes very much back to the same thing that Khan has been criticizing, which is lack of independence of Pakistani institutions, lack of sovereignty of Pakistan as a result of this relationship. The irony, of course, as critics of Khan will correctly point out, is that his original political rise was sponsored by the military, and it was actually supported by the military out of the belief that he would be effectively a palatable face to the public for their own rule. But what happened is that he effectively rebelled against that relationship. He rebelled against it. Now he's sitting in prison for going up against the same military, which had, in the outset, been a sponsor of his own rise.
Well, that was going to be my next question. How does his 3-year prison sentence fit into this? I mean, I know that based on your piece, he's still quite popular within Pakistan. And yet he's has a 3-year prison sentence that he's, I guess, in the process of appealing. But what's the sense from you of the validity of those charges and how this plays into the political realities you're talking about?
And we should just say, as you answer that, the charges in the prison sentence come just months after there was an assassination attempt on him, as well. I mean, so there's clearly like people who are hostile to him but your thoughts on the charges and the prison sentence.
Yeah, the charges and the prison sentence come at the tail end, or maybe it's not the tail end, but they come following months of very extreme pressure on Khan and his supporters and people in the press who seem to be aligned with him, his political allies. Many of them have been arrested, some have been killed. put in jail. Khan himself, as you mentioned, was almost killed in an assassination attempt. So these charges are not viewed as very apolitical inside Pakistan. They're viewed specifically for one purpose: to prevent him from contesting elections expected for later this year and potentially end his political career entirely. In addition to a 3-year sentence, they also have a 5-year ban from participation in politics. So Khan is the most popular politician in Pakistan, probably by a long shot, I would say. If he were allowed to contest these elections that were coming up or expected to come up, he would undoubtedly win. And as a result of that, they need to get him out of the picture as expeditiously as possible. And this has come a number of ways. They've arrested and forced many people who were part of his party to denounce him in public after very North Korea style, public presentations where they are arrested and then come out and give a speech saying we're no longer a part of politics, we're leaving politics entirely, we're sorry for taking part in the first place. Many cases like this have taken place. People I mentioned have disappeared into prison, accusations of torture. A very prominent journalist who was aligned with Imran Khan's party was killed in an assassination in Kenya a few months ago. Another has disappeared into custody in recent months and alleged to have either been tortured in custody or killed. No one's heard from him since. So as a result of that, we've seen a tremendous amount of pressure effectively trying to wipe out the most popular political party and most popular political leader in Pakistan by the military. And I think it's the most repressive environment Pakistan's probably seen in many, many years, if ever. And it's all coming on the back of the Pakistani military, its civilian allies, and with subtle or not so subtle cosign from the United States. I'll mention that CENTCOM chief Michael Kurilla or Eric Kurilla was in Pakistan a few weeks ago, meeting with the head of the Pakistani military. He issued a statement, lauding their cooperation and made no mention of the political context going on at the moment. So it seems very clear that the U.S. is, if not supporting, at least green lighting what's taking place in Pakistan.
You mentioned not by name, but the killing of Arshad Sharif in Kenya. He had been, I guess it was also, he had fled Pakistan at one point. He had been writing a lot of stuff about the military and about this case of Khan, and also the existence of this memo, which you guys got handed, and you write, you give at least some indication of your source. It was a military source, and part of their justification for leaking it to you. Tell us a little bit about Sharif in terms of like what kind of press there were. I know that there was not an investigative report, but a fact-finding report. I've skimmed it briefly. It's 600 pages. But I guess just the first 100 or so are really actually substantive, and the rest are, I guess, forensics. But it makes it clear that the official stories that came out of Kenya from the Kenyan officials are full of holes as to, like, they claim that he was shot because his driver ran through a checkpoint outside of Nairobi, but the driver was not shot. The passenger was shot. And it also appears that from his autopsy that there's indications of torture. What can you tell us more about Sharif?
Yeah, his killing is so clouded in intrigue at this point now. I can tell you what people widely allege or believe to have happened and are saying publicly about it as well too, is that Mr. Sharif had to flee Pakistan because of the threats from the military, as he said, because of his reporting on what was going on with the military in Khan at that time. And specifically about this cable, which he is believed to have been reporting on at the time he was killed. He fled to Kenya for his safety, and he was killed in this incident in Kenya thereafter. What many allege is that, in fact, Mr. Sharif was assassinated by the military while abroad, and the manner in which he was killed may have involved some exploitation of domestic corruption in Kenya and law enforcement to wipe out a political rival by the Pakistani military. I can't confirm these reports because, as I said, they're still a subject matter of debate. But it certainly does seem very interesting that he'd been under so much threat He fled because of that threat, immediately was killed in a shooting incident after arriving in Kenya not long thereafter. And he would only be one of many people who've either died or been detained during this ongoing crackdown, which is still playing out at the moment. Another thing, Imran Riaz Khan, another Pakistani journalist, he disappeared at the hands of the military some months ago. No one's heard from him since. There were denials even afterwards that he'd been in custody, which is one of the worst things you could hear if someone's been denied when law enforcement and authorities start saying, actually, we don't have him. And, some foreign observers have said that either he's been tortured or killed in custody. Again, it's not totally confirmed, but these are the kind of things that are going on right now in terms of suppression of the press in Pakistan, which is also why this document cannot be reported in Pakistan. Why it had to be reported in the United States by American journalists, because there was simply no longer the capability of doing so there domestically because of this pressure, which is quite tragic because Pakistan, despite all its problems, it had a very vigorous and lively press for many, many years. And that has effectively been silenced now through fear and intimidation, as we're seeing play out at the moment.
Just getting back to the motivation of the U.S. here, that is, again, the memo outlines exactly what Donald Liu, again, a State Department official, had said to this Pakistani contingency. What other reasons would they have to have issue with Khan? Look, I personally would like to see Joe Biden say to Israeli officials, you're going to be very isolated unless you change your policies in the West Bank. Benjamin Netanyahu, nobody's going to welcome him to the everything that Liu articulates in here are things that I would like our government to say, frankly, to Israel, recipient of a lot more aid, specifically than Pakistan, obviously. But it is the issue. It seems to me is less like what is, but over why the why are they saying this? Governments are going to say we have a preference for what you do as a country all the time. It seems to me, but to say we have an issue with your neutrality. When India has the same stance, and India may be more strategically necessary for us than them not to be neutral in this conflict, it seems to me like there's another thing at play here, and it has to be one of two things, although they're not mutually exclusive. The U.S. has problems with Khan being prime minister, and they're other than or not just limited to the neutrality, and the Pakistani military has a problem with Khan, and they are using the U.S. and the U.S. is using. There's a certain reciprocity there.
Yeah, I think it's a good way of thinking about it is that, in light, the U.S. has a reciprocity relationship with Imran Khan, but the institutional levers will be different, let's say, in Israel and Pakistan, specifically because of this relationship with the Pakistani military, who are really the real rulers of Pakistan, regardless of on paper, that's actually the reality of it. And this message was effectively a message directed to them. And some people have mentioned that, if the U.S. want to do regime change in Pakistan, why would it send Donald Liu and another State Department guy do it? Why not some other mechanism of doing so? I think that what's actually more important is less even than what Mr. Liu said or meant to say, but how it was received on the Pakistani side. And one thing this cable allows us to see for the first time, and I've read many intelligence cables now from different intelligence agencies around the world, classified cables, I think at least 3 or 4 now. And one thing you all see at the bottom of any cable is an assessment section, an assessment by the person filing the cable. And the Pakistani ambassador in this cable, he filed something very interesting. He's like, Don Liu could not have said what he was saying so stridently unless it was coming from the White House.
Right.
So it must be coming from the White House. The Pakistani side determined based on what his message was and how forthright it was. And they acted with great urgency thereafter. We saw a lot of things change immediately on the Pakistani side. The measure of no confidence moved up to the next day after the vote. A few weeks later, General Bajwa, who was the head of the armed force at that time, was going on public and contradicting publicly Imran Khan's stance on the Ukraine conflict specifically. And so a lot of things changed very quickly, and that's because of this sort of sordid relationship the U.S. has with the military, that they're able to direct things to different power centers in Pakistani society. And I'm reminded of a very famous meeting between Saddam Hussein and the U.S. diplomat before the 1991 Gulf War, April Glaspie, when Saddam Hussein asked Mrs. Glaspie, do you have an opinion on what we do in our conflict with Kuwait? And she said something to the effect of, we have no opinion on inter-Arab conflicts, that's your business. They interpreted that as meaning that we can invade Kuwait and you don't mind. Right. Whereas that may not have been what they meant. And it may not have been that Mr. Liu meant to say that you better take him out or else we're going to have big problems. So he did kind of say that verbatim, but he may have had give him the benefit of that. He may have some different purpose. He didn't want to affect regime change in Pakistan. They certainly seem to interpret it that way. They interpret it that way, and they're very anxious about what the U.S. position is, the Pakistani military and other elites inside Pakistan. And they acted based on that interpretation. We can see even now in the assessment section, now that this document's been released, the public viewing, that they did take it that way. So, regardless of what the State Department meant, they had this effect. And I think it's a foreseeable effect given the history of the U.S.-Pakistan relationship.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. We've certainly seen a lot of attempts by the Pakistani government and military to silence anybody who's in any way sort of digging around in this and in basically the turn of events that took place.
Totally. And another thing is the new government has been in power for a year and a half now, and Imran Khan's still been talking about this cipher document. They've been responding to it, dismissing it, saying all types of things. They could have declassified it at any time and released it to the public and said, here's what it says, whatever it says has nothing to do with the regime change or anything like that. They didn't. They did the opposite of going to any extent possible, suppressing it, including using violence against people reporting on it. And now that it was revealed, it kind of doesn't look very good on them. And if it is benign, as some defenders of the government claim, it doesn't really make sense that they would have taken this option. They would have released it a long time ago. And I think it's because it's not very benign. And regardless of what the U.S. meant to say, they know what it shows on the Pakistani side. It shows sequence of events triggered or beginning with this cipher, which is a lot closer to what Imran Khan has been saying for the past year and a half than it is what his opposition has been saying.
Could the United States' attempts to cozy up to the Modi government have anything to do with their posture towards Pakistan or Khan in particular? Modi was just in the U.S. Biden was being very publicly accepting of him, and I'm not sure what Modi and Imran Khan's relationship has been, but let me know what you think of that theory.
Yeah, it's difficult to say because I don't want to say that Khan and India's relationship was particularly bad. Unfortunately, India and Pakistan have a negative relationship going back many years, spanning multiple administrations. But I would say actually, if there's any institution in Pakistan which has been the most invested in conflict with India, it's been the Pakistani military and intelligence service. They've been at the forefront of. They control foreign policy, they control defense policy, and they are in charge of any hawkish or aggressive policy towards India, which has existed either now or in the past. So the weakening of civilian rule actually strengthens those forces. And whether it's in India's interest to see Pakistan more unstable or weak or military ruled, it's kind of difficult to say. There's different competing camps within India with different philosophies about that subject. But I don't think that Khan was particularly hostile to India in the Pakistani context. And nor do I think this new government is particularly favorable to India. I think that in many cases, India is sort of in a similar situation to Pakistan. They're trying to resist external pressure to take a side in this conflict, or in any conflict, really, not dealing with their interests. The benefit that they have is they have institutions which are more capable of resistance. And, whatever Don Lu actually said to me very interesting in this cable, not reported before, is that he expected that after Indian students were evacuated from Ukraine, there were many thousands of them stranded in Ukraine at the start of the war, India would change its policy and become more aligned with the West on this conflict. And that never happened. Students were evacuated. India still as resistant and you could say obstinate towards the U.S. wishes as it had been at the time. So I think it actually shows that how institutions and the strength or weakness of them can have create wildly different outcomes in two countries, and with India and Pakistan being great examples.
Murtaza Hussain, reporter at the Intercept, National Security, Foreign Policy. Great reporting for you and then Ryan Grimm, and really appreciate you coming on and walking us through it. We'll put a link to the piece. The memo itself is really fascinating reading for someone who doesn't read a lot of these internal documents, and to get a sense of how how Pakistan receives this, whatever these words are, and how it's parsed. Just very very fascinating in that regard. Really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Guess we didn't get to as much news during the.
Fascinating story.
It is a fascinating story.
I think because we had Grimm on recently, I've been getting like a bunch of new followers from Pakistan. Like a dozen a day.
Interesting.
I'm not
Are
sure.
you involved in any dealings there? Or?
No, I just feel like because you guys haven't noticed this at all.
I don't
notice.
I don't notice anything on Twitter anymore.
I
It just
don't
freaking
even
work.
I think it's better than ever. I don't know what you guys.
If you told me I had 1 million followers now, I wouldn't have any idea. But I know I don't.
The one thing is, it definitely, if you're not verified, engagement's down. That's the only thing I've noticed. 100%.
Not verified. Engagement seems fine on mine.
I'll tell you what I learned recently on Twitter, though. I'm Jewish.
Oh, really?
Yes, a lot of people in the replies have pointed out to me that I'm a Jew.
That is the benefit of a communications platform. You learn something new every day.
I keep learning the same thing every day, actually, when I log on to Twitter.
Redundancy is important.
I'm a Jew.
Information process, and you need to repeat a message sometimes a lot to get it to sink in.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I did notice about Twitter, and I've been off it a lot more lately, but when I posted there, because I've been down, I've posted twice about picketing. On the SAG-AFTRA. I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA. I think people know that. And I get the weirdest sort of crew. It takes about 12 hours, but then all of a sudden I get a lot of like very low count conservatives, and they're real people. I'm quite convinced they're real people, but they all come in like, how did they find I don't, I've posted stuff like about like a whole host of conservative, and I've never ever get the amount of small time conservative pushback, weird, like anti-union, anti-SAG-AFTRA, and it really feels like to me, and I have no basis for this other than the preponderance of people who signed up for Twitter like in March of 2023, but that this feels like a campaign that is going after people who are supportive of the strike. That's what it feels like.
That would
to me.
not be shocking.
Now, I would be shocked if some of these reputable companies would actually pay for a third-party service that would hire people to tweet about you. I would be shocked.
You're wondering if the producers who are making it part of their bargaining that they're going to use robots to replace their workers might be using some sort of bot.
I don't think they're bots.
I don't know. I know what you're talking about, but I think, like, what do you do? What do you
Could be
use it to
both.
signify that they're real? That their timeline?
Yeah. I'm
'Cause,
going into their
I
timeline.
feel like they
and
can simulate that stuff now.
it's possible, but this seems to be like it seems to be a lot of reply guys.
Right. But all you have to do is have a few that you model off of, and they can just like set up a few like replies saying, "Oh, look at me doing this supportive tweet of Vivek Ramaswamy," or something. Or even like, I mean, the weird ones are when they're like entertainment on their main page.
Well, why would you? But if you were going to have bots, why would you have them do conservative stuff.
Well, that's what I was going to say is like I see some where it's like their main feed is them like retweeting entertainment stuff.
Yes.
And then like the replies are all like conservative.
Yeah. But that's not what I've noticed. But who knows? Folks, we got a lot of stuff to get to in the fun half. I just want to remind you, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free half free of commercials, but you also get the fun half, which is so fun. In fact, it's so fun, it's illegal for me to talk about. Because I'd get a RICO charge. JoinTheMajorityReport.com. Also, don't forget JustCoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code MAJORITY. Get 10% off. I should tell you right now, I am off for a bit. Going to the beach. And I'm going to hope to join the coverage of the first debate.
Oh, gosh, right.
Remotely.
Yeah.
But that's going to be happening. So Emma will give you more deets.
Is that next week?
Next week.
Wednesday.
More deets as we go. Speaking of Emma.
Yeah.
What's happening on ESPN?
Well, we spoke about kind of the bombshell story of Michael Oher coming out and speaking about how the... did you ever see the movie The Blind Side?
I did, actually. I've watched that many times on a plane, I feel like.
It's a horrible white savior movie, but it gets worse. Apparently,
I cried.
Well,
it's with Sandra Bullock, right?
I mean, it's there to make you cry. Yes.
I'm joking.
You didn't cry?
In fact, if I watch a commercial on an airplane, I cry. I think it has something to do with the altitude.
That makes sense. I mean, I cried everything regardless, but it's still a bad film. That's where they like fostered a wait for it. They didn't actually adopt him. They told him they were adopting him right after he claims in a court filing, right after he turned 18, they had him sign a conservatorship, which they said was the same as adoption.
It's the same thing, yeah.
And he didn't make a cent from that movie, and they paid out a bunch of money to themselves and their kids from the optioning of the book, from the movie, and he didn't make any of that money.
And apparently hated the way he was represented in the film.
And he wasn't like illiterate like they claim
Right.
in the film. Yeah, it's wild.
Michael Lewis in trouble.
It's a crazy story. But like, conservatorship is what Britney Spears was in. No control over your finances. They just sucked him dry, leeches.
Can I do that with my kid? I mean, if I do that, like it's just.
Well, you'd have to prove to some judge that the kid was not able to, function in the same way. So there's probably some racist undertones. But regardless, we spoke about that on ESPN.
That's a crazy story.
Crazy. But not shocking given the tenor, honestly, of it is shocking, but when you think about it a little more, not terribly shocking. We also, we spoke about, gosh, what did we speak about? Sorry. This is bad. Ron Rivera undermining the enemy in college football realignment. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
Matt, Left Reckoning.
Left Reckoning tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern. David Griscom did a conversation with a conservative, Sohrab Armari, on who's basically saying he wants New Deal liberalism back, which is interesting. And we're having Ben Burgess on in the post game to talk about
what makes him conservative.
He's a conservative. He apparently was. I'm blocked by him on Twitter.
He's like that's why Griscom had to do it.
No,
I won't show up.
He's almost like a Ross Douthat level moralist in some.
No, I would have done it. And I actually don't know why I'm blocked by him. It was probably he transitioned to Roman Catholicism, so I think I probably made fun of him for that for 4 years ago. But they could only record it yesterday, and I thought I was going to be gone this week. But but we'll get into it. But yeah, basically he was a Trotskyist in high school, and then part of his conversion to Roman Catholicism, which is again where I raise my eyebrow. He basically thinks that private companies have too much power in the economy. So him and Griscom had an interesting chat.
There you go. All right, folks. Lux. The phenomenon you're describing are not bots. It's called astroturfing. One person controls multiple sock puppets numbering in the hundreds, all with the individual personalization to give the appearance of being real. It's a very common practice in marketing going back 20 plus years, but it's all over the place on Twitter. This is what most modern marketing firms is very similar to what the Russian Internet Research Agency did in 2015. Same thing happened with Gamergate in 2014. Look up the history of Microsoft astroturfing. Astroturfing? Astroturfing.
Yeah.
And FUD. Fear, uncertainty, doubt.
Yeah, but Elon said he was getting rid of all the bots, So.
See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it to my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Denner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males...
Psych. Fuck them. Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100.
Can't knock the hustle.
Come on, fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back.
We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland, Majority Report. Mike from Bavaria, where is Saul? What secrets are you trying to hide? Saul will be in here probably the first week of September. Because, of course, school starts on a Thursday.
That's odd. That is odd.
Why wouldn't you start it on a Thursday? Of course. You start school on a Thursday. That way, it's impossible to send the kid to camp. There are no camps that are doing anything the first week in September. It's annoying. Rusty, crusty mattress, but he'll come in for a couple days, at least for a day or two. Time to switch up the fun half intro. Just saying, left is best, says Rudy Crusty Mattress.
Well, make us a new one, Rudy Crusty Mattress.
Well, don't we have two in the cycle?
We go through them.
Okay. Yeah, you think that we don't do these things?
Free labor
rely
from our fans.
we rely on the kindness of strangers. We're not really strangers.
Well, bullprog.
Yeah, not really stranger.
One, yeah. Friend.
Fallout from the Trump indictment. Couple of places.
You mean the Rubicon crossing?
The Rubicon has been crossed, ladies and gentlemen.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, man. I actually looked at the Rubicon. You could jump over that thing, actually, in a lot of parts.
Don't you dare cross that Rubicon.
The
chicken cross the Rubicon.
To piss off Michael Tracy.
One of the IMers basically made this point, which I neglected to make up front. The Georgia charges, unlike the city charges in New York City, could lead really to jail time pretty easily. And Donald Trump's, right now, his primary sort of like defense strategy in all these cases is become president and have the DOJ stop prosecuting. He can't really do that with Georgia. There obviously would be a tremendous amount of political pressure on this DA to sort of tap the brakes, I guess, if Donald Trump was president or even the GOP nominee. But it represents a lot more jeopardy towards Donald Trump. Now, there is something sort of like it would be. It's interesting. It's interesting to entertain the idea of Donald Trump serving as president, but also simultaneously serving a jail time.
That
prison,
would be
prison
fascinating.
time.
It would kind of throw a wrench in some diplomacy efforts. You just can't, no Air Force One.
But you welcome people to the prison, I guess.
Make them come to you. That's a negotiation tactic,
I don't
too.
travel anymore. I don't do that. Here is, and really, I think this guy may be the only person that we know so far has not been indicted in part of this Georgia scheme. Here's Seb Gorka talking to Newsmax Rob Schmidt about this indictment. I don't know what Gorka has been doing. Of course, but here he is.
Former White House advisor in the Trump administration, Sebastian Gorka, joins me now. I think this is the fourth one we've done together, sir. Another indictment, state of Georgia. Your thoughts?
Well, let's just start with what happened earlier today, Rob. What a farrago, what a clown show that the Clark County Court's webpage lists the 13 felony indictments, including a RICO statute, and then whoops, it just magically disappears. I immediately tweeted out the document and I said, this is a con. I mean, this is a setup that, it's so pre-cooked, it's so pre-baked that they've got this thing ready even before the judge has signed off on it, as you just showed a few moments ago. I mean, right. it just tells you just how corrupt.
Contemplate this for a moment, that the prosecutor's office did not write up the indictment. First of all, they write it up.
It was the charges,
and they were waiting for the judge's signature. The idea that they're running a test run to post these things because they don't want it to leak out and have some type of mayhem after the judge signs it. Of course, it's a con. You would never, ever prepare for something like this when you're indicting a former president and then 18 co-conspirators, and they're planning ahead. What's that about?
I saw some woman say, and I think this is what he's referring to, but look at the list. They indicted him before they even voted. It's like, no, they listed the charges out so the grand jurors could vote on them.
Why don't they instantaneously type it up as soon as the judge signs?
Second drafts? Oh, they're so malevolent.
Why isn't it all extemporaneous inside the courtroom? They have to
obviously the fix is in. They've only been investigating this for like a year. And the fact that they had the document almost 3 hours before they released it publicly. What's that about? Go ahead.
Showed a few moments ago. I mean, it just tells you just how corrupt this whole process is. And let's be clear. I mean, read the transcript of the Raffensperger call. I've got it in front of me. President Trump said what? He said, I just want to find 11,780 votes. That's like saying, I just want to have vanilla ice cream for dessert. It's not a crime to say, I just want something. They're trying to turn that into a crime. It's as your guest has said, it's as the president said in Iowa at the weekend, this is about election interference.
Pause it for 1 second. Let's talk about, like, I'm trying to think of the context where the actual analogy, I would just like a vanilla ice cream.
And also, this vanilla ice cream will make me president of the United States for another 4 years.
And it's completely illegal for you to give me some vanilla ice cream. There's a new law, and it's not your ice cream. It's actually all of the people's ice cream, and it's like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the statement; it's who the statement is directed towards. It's not like he's just calling. He's like, "Oh," Trump's calling and saying, "Have you seen those new Air Jordans? Like, I'd really like a pair. They're so sick." He's calling the Georgia Secretary of State.
Well, if he was calling his own campaign manager, when he was saying, like, "Find me 11,000 more votes," the campaign manager's like, "Well, okay." But it's also, you know what else? Like, it is amazing how we're criminalizing, like, every question. Like, I just want my wife dead, and there's money for you in it, and so I'll pay you. Is that a crime to ask?
That's free speech.
To pay somebody? Where's my First Amendment rights?
When Henry II said aloud to his advisors, "Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest?" He was just expressing his free speech.
Are we anti-literature now? Okay, go ahead.
1,780 votes. That's like saying, I just want to have vanilla ice cream for dessert. It's not a crime to say, I just want something. They're trying to turn that into a crime. It's as your guest has said, it's as the president said in Iowa at the weekend, this is about election interference and preventing him from being the man who will unseat Joe Biden.
Well done.
The best part of this whole thing is, like, when you hear people like, the reason why they were prosecuting him for January 6th is because they're afraid that Biden's going to lose the election. Biden had just beat him.
Yeah.
Biden beat him.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, with all due respect to President Biden, I don't know that Biden could beat anybody but Donald Trump.
Right.
I mean, I don't know that he's going to beat Donald Trump. I don't know that Donald Trump.
I think he's got a better chance than people want to admit, just because they don't like Biden's policies.
I mean, I think, like, if
he's healthy, he's going to beat Trump again.
Yeah, I don't. But I think that Biden would have trouble. Like, and I don't know how you would get through the Republican primary. But if Biden was running against that, guy from Montana, Burgum, or,
Oh, he's from North Dakota.
North Dakota, sorry, but.
Also, he's tied to Bill Gates, so maybe not the best example. But Kristi Noem?
I mean, I think it would be tricky. But, I mean, the idea is Biden beat Trump already.
Mm-hmm.
There's the idea that somehow Trump is some insurmountable force is just absurd.
I think if Biden were being honest, they asked who would you want to face in the Republican primary, he would say Trump.
Well,
because of how independents are going to react to the 4 indictments in 4 separate, multiple charges in each of them, I guess. What, the total's over 90?
Yeah, it's funny when Ted Cruz is like, this always happens when we're doing our Hunter Biden stuff. It's like, you've been doing the Hunter Biden stuff continuously for 4 years, and this stuff is also just a regular part of our lives.
This always happens when people are breathing oxygen.
Right.
It's the same thing with you guys and Hunter Biden.
I just want ice cream. Just want to remind you, one of the charges in the indictment is centered around this is some of the defendants, with a scheme to harass and intimidate the election worker Ruby Freeman. And Trump and some of his crew had basically accused her of fraud. Here is a clip, you may have forgotten about this, from more or less last year. I think it was June of 2022. Ruby Freeman testified to the January 6th committee and about what had happened to her being on the other end, essentially targeted by the president and the former president of the United States and all their thugs.
I've lost my name and I've lost my reputation. I've lost my sense of security, all because a group of people, starting with number 45 and his ally, Rudy Giuliani, decided to scapegoat me and my daughter, Shay, to push their own lies about how the presidential election was stolen.
We're just going to play the tape.
There is nowhere I feel safe. Nowhere. Do you know how it feels to have the President of the United States to target you? The President of the United States is supposed to represent every American, not to target one. But he targeted me, Lady Ruby, a small business owner, a mother, a proud American citizen who stand up to help Fulton County run an election in the middle of the pandemic.
Yep. Her and her daughter. And Giuliani had been in particular targeting Ruby and her daughter, and he's now the subject of a defamation lawsuit from some of the claims that he made in Georgia, basically saying that they were, if you remember the quote about Giuliani saying they were passing around USB drives like they were vials of heroin and cocaine. He was referring to Ruby and her daughter, Shay. Obviously, there's racial undertones.
Wonder how they decided to pick those guys.
It's just, it really is. I mean, like, it's we're all victims of like these election lies, and in the fact that Trump has created this toxic, disgusting environment where our democracy, whatever's left of it, is under threat. But the threat-bearer institutions that we have are under threat because of him. But there are also victims on the micro level, like Ruby Freeman, who have been harassed and their lives indelibly changed for deciding that they want to do a public service in the middle of the pandemic and count votes.
Yeah, I mean, and we have all these people talking about that, suggesting that this stuff against Trump is the spurious, politically motivated lie. And meanwhile, they're ruining people's lives with exactly that, transparent lies about people.
One more clip about the indictments. And this one, a lot of people say, Sam, you have no conservative friends. You're knee jerk. Whenever a conservative says something, you disagree with them. And this, of course, is a complete fabrication. I mean, to the extent that I have conservative friends, it's just like, broadly speaking, I just try and limit the number of friends I have into like the low single digits. And so it's not an ideological thing. But with that said, credit where credit's due. I agree with Ben Shapiro in light of these indictments. Here he is just speaking about presidents getting indicted on this show. I don't know if it's AI, but Larry King. With Larry King,
so chronology.
Well, I'm not sure we could indict Washington, but I think that certainly...
I'm sure something was done.
Washington was relatively clean, but if you look at George W. Bush, or if you looked at Bill Clinton, or if you looked at Ronald Reagan, sure. I mean, the answer would be that you could, and people should be wary. I mean, this is sort of the case that I'm making, is that we've become so comfortable with the executive branch of the government abusing its citizens and violating our rights and violating what they're structured to do under the law, that we've just become used to it. And if we start treating them as criminals, maybe they'll think twice before they act so criminally in the future.
I just credit where credit is due. I want to say that Ben Shapiro, absolutely right. I agree with Ben Shapiro assessment here. It is important to hold presidents to account, regardless of who the president is, because we don't want presidents to think they can get away with breaking the law. And, whoopsie.
Ooh, I guess that clip was from 2014.
And this was today.
Whatever you think of the Trump indictments, Ben Shapiro tweets, one thing is for certain, the glass has now been broken over and over again.
Over and over again.
Political opponents can be targeted by legal enemies. I don't know what that means. Running for office now carries the legal risk of going to jail on all sides. Okay. aside from the fact that, like, I don't know what legal enemies mean. What is legal enemies? Does that mean?
I think he meant political. Well, yeah, as legal political target opponents can
Put it
be
back
targeted
up.
as
Political opponents can be targeted by legal enemies.
Yeah.
Does he mean like?
He's talking about the DA. He's talking about Jack Smith. Legal enemies. They're in the law profession, so they're not political. They're
Okay.
technically they're
I'm sorry.
legal.
I just thought he was an adult.
Yeah.
I knew how
Legal
to
enemies.
articulate some of these things. By enemies who hold prosecutorial office.
I hate when
or-
glass. Yeah, can I just make one point? I hate when glass is broken over and over again. Like
It's ground down in a way
Fine
that is
particulate.
actually now not as dangerous.
Nice.
You
I,
can't
lo-
get,
I also love when you're the facts and logic guy and you decide in the first 7 words of your response to this to put aside every single part of the central facts of the case. Whatever you think of the Trump indictments, okay, then putting that aside, and I'm going to gesture towards like an emotional point about people, about political persecution, and my conservative audience, you know what that means.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to gesture towards. But putting aside all of the central facts that are the most and only relevant part of the Trump indictments, I'm going to make a separate point. Coward. I mean, he's a coward. He doesn't want to piss off his audience, and he knows what he's doing. I mean, we just saw that clip.
the irony is, though, is that by saying that, he actually makes himself look even stupider, because he is saying that as a matter of principle, you should not be going after the president of the United States on legal grounds, when he literally, that was all he was saying in that
He was promoting his book, The People versus Barack Obama. That was
Imagine whatever you think of
the criminal case against the Obama administration. That was the name of his book.
whenever you think of Barack Obama, one thing is for certain: they don't want to break the glass.
And the point is, though, is that he's saying, regardless of who the president is, as a matter of principle, it is healthy for this. Like you could use the metaphor of glass. It's healthy for this glass to be broken.
Yeah, thank goodness.
And that political opponents be targeted by so-called legal enemies. But of course, I mean, they believe nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
they believe nothing.
Whenever you see somebody that says, like, whatever you think of the Trump indictments or whatever you think of this person's so-called statements, you got to defend that and then move to an apolitical statement of principle, like defend their right to free speech. Like it's somebody being bullshit.
But I think it would have been a perfectly fine construction for him to say, putting aside the Trump indictments, it's important that we are able, as a matter of principle, to hold presidents legally accountable for breaking the law. Like, I would have totally agreed with that.
Well, because it would have been courageous instead of craven.
Well, I mean, he can't say that now. He can only say that when it's going to be when it's President Biden, when they're putting charges on President Biden for having a son who is
doing his free speech,
not doing very well. But there's Ben Shapiro, Pope of the Jews. Syrup Salat. Absolutely loved the show yesterday. Left his best. Thank you. JD, quit calling me honey. Wisconsin Sam. Let's all congratulate Donald Trump for breaking the record of most indicted former president, title formerly held by Donald Trump, who stole the title, held by Mr. Donald Trump, who stole the title from Mr. Donald Trump after previously broke a 247-year streak of 0. Kowalski from Nebraska. I get my honey from the beekeeper at the farmer's market that lives down by Clay Center, Nebraska. His bees get pollen out of the USDA testing facilities, which is a multi-thousand acre complex, so I can be sure that my honey is definitely more unique than anything you guys have.
All right.
Jesus.
Flex on our sponsor.
Whoa.
Insulting.
I imagine you can ship that.
Mm.
We could do a taste test. Frank Bluntz, these Trump indictments can't be any clearer evidence than the war on intellectualism in this country. Be careful, all you very stable geniuses. Evil Haxer. The Trump could murder every person on the planet and the Secret Service will still never allow him to be jailed. It's a fantasy.
The Secret Service have a say anymore?
First of all, I don't think the Secret Service would have any say in this context, but I quite imagine that what would happen is if Donald Trump went to jail, I don't think Donald Trump is going to be in the
Rikers?
Yeah, and I don't think he's going to be like in the public. He's going to be in isolation.
Right.
With guards.
They should put him in the same cell as Epstein.
I'm working from home. I'm starting to think Trump actually sees jail time, which makes me seriously wonder what happens if Trump is running while in jail and Biden has to drop out for health reasons. Could he beat Harris from jail?
Would he what's the chances he flees to a country that's sympathetic to him, like Russia?
What's that?
What's the chance Trump
Exiled Trump?
Trump flees?
Flight risk. That'd be so funny.
If he loses, he might flee the country.
Hey, everybody, I'll be out in just 10 minutes to give my concession speech.
Just a plane.
Flight just takes off. Wait, where's Trump flights going?
I mean, we should do a draft.
Everybody stay right here. I'll be out in 10 minutes. I just need to...
Biden scrambles.
I just need to gather my thoughts together. Yeah. But you're all great. Stay right here. Nobody move.
Melania's left on the tarmac.
No chance she's coming. No chance.
Here's looking at you, kid. Gets on the flight. It heads out to, oh my God. That would be...
Except he's Ingrid Bergman.
I would pay good money for that.
I'm
if the trial is televised, we're going to make so much money.
My God.
Please.
It's going to be televised everywhere.
Yeah.
But the Georgia trial, let's be clear. The Georgia hearings are going to be televised. And it's unclear whether those proceedings will put on hold until Jack Smith's trial happens. We'll see. Courier 11 second. Are you trying to convince me that a disease doesn't magically check a person's ID and not infect them unless they are of voting age? Nonsense. Iowa Ryan, doesn't Jack Smith have Garland holding him back, not allowing him to charge insurrection charge? I don't know. I don't know. We're going to read about it in 10 years. We'll know. Maybe 3 years. Maybe in 2 years.
But Garland was like, he could have moved on this way earlier.
Without a doubt. Professional dumpster fire, the best racketeering. We had race racketeers like you wouldn't believe, the biggest, best rackets. Sam walking into the D jokes, huh, Sam? Okay. Militant apathy. Atlanta public schools. Whoever was on that call to Georgia and didn't get indicted may be flipped. If you can pull up Fox News at night from last night, the only person they could come up with to defend Donald Trump was Caitlyn Jenner. That's crazy. This shit was hilarious. I've testified in that grand jury room a few times. They list the charges in the packet on the cover page. They read the charge to the grand jury before you testify. Of course, it was printed out somewhere. That's how they set the calendar. I suspect the reason it took so long for the clerk to print out the indictment is probably because they had to go put the case back into the computer.
It was also 99 pages or whatever, over 90 pages, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens. Like, I was in grand jury duty in April, and it's like they come in and say, hey, we're going to be trying to prove the charges of X, Y, and then maybe further we'll instruct you on. They don't have to do that from their memory. They get to, print something out for it.
Right.
Name is pronounced Fawny Willis. Sorry. Hey, guys, did you cover the Dom Luker story? If you're aware of Elon's actions there, isn't that a reason to take a moral objection to the platform?
I mean, I think there's always been...
I don't know.
Dom Luker's the guy that posted the child abuse photo and Elon reinstated
him.
But, I don't... I use it as a tool of the morality of it. There's been reasons to object to all these things for a long time. This one is another one. I think it's good that people are reporting on it and outraged by it, but I'm not gonna leave Twitter in protest over it, a thing that these guys do because they're all freaks.
I make it a point never to click on ads.
Oh yeah,
on
definitely.
Twitter.
And I think auto blocking people who pay for the verification, I think that's awesome. I love that sort of stuff. But as far as like just saying like I'm gonna do Blue Sky now, that's not. I'm not doing it for morality purposes. I'm doing it for.
I like Blue Sky, but it's not quite there yet. Happy News Day Tuesday. Yesterday, I told you, this is Tom Flink, about 57 triathletes got sick after swimming in Britain's sewage-filled public waters. Make that 88. Also, Twitter news, ding-dongs have deemed AOC a traitor to healthcare because she was encouraging people to use sunscreen. You know, the stuff that is shown to reduce one's risk of skin cancer.
Well, what she was doing was saying that like the process for approving sunscreen is like really behind in the United States or something like that, and there's healthier, more effective sunscreens in other countries. And people went off on her for being like a fake or something.
Yeah,
and it's so dumb. It's so dumb.
I mean, personally, like I think the more important thing is she's like down in Brasilia now, meeting with Lula, with like Greg Kassar and stuff like that. I think that's the more important thing. I mean,
what's wrong with
it's associated with women, and she had like a dermatologist on to do it, and so that
there's like the sort of like
misogyny brain.
I mean, and also like the critique of I mean, Carl Bayer did make a criticism on his blog about like the anti-regulatory stuff. Like and it comes from just a tension between like, is this person a socialist or is it not? But I think it's ultimately being emphasized way too much for.
What is she doing?
Like there's like regulatory things about the sunscreen, and we need to lower regulatory barriers so we can have.
But it's also
faster.
But it's also more about the evaluation of these products relative to like the actual regulations around. Like the period for evaluating sunscreen in the U.S. per the FDA is much longer and more stringent than it is in other countries. So countries like Japan and other countries have like much more advanced technology / like design for sunscreen that's much more effective than the ones we have, and that she was just like shedding light on that. I mean I don't think it.
Look,
I'm surprised that people thought it was so stupid. When I mean I don't know. It's a regulatory.
I understand why people are a little bit feel a little bit awkward about like talking with a brand partner about this new sunscreen and the regulations are like. But I ultimately like if United Farm Workers are saying, "Hey, this is a good issue," then you get a pass from me, and like we should focus on the Brazil stuff. But yeah, I think there's much ado over it.
Jimmy Dore's Hollywood mansion. So it turns out Trump tried to steal the election. Madness. The burger joint. Natural enemy. I did nothing wrong, and they indicted me. I really believe that Emma is the rightful host of the show. Indict Sam Seder. Rusty Krusty. Trump called down to Georgia. He was looking for an election to steal. Do you know what that's a reference to?
Yeah, Devil Went Down to Georgia.
There you go.
It's on Guitar Hero.
Noble villain. I'm positive that the list of names is a yacht club member role somewhere down the letter. Expert dog kisser. I just got a new dog who's adorable. His name is Jeff, and he has soft lips. Oh, my God. Niall from Trinidad, rapper, Young Thug, and 13 others were also prosecuted by the same prosecutor under the RICO in January. Oh. Charlie Scher.
Yes, this is what Trump is, from that case, Trump has been alleging that Fonnie Willis had an affair with one of those defendants.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, yeah, I'm like the Young Thug. Free me and Young Thug.
Free Thugger. They're all saying Free Thugger.
My name is Vivek. It rhymes with cake. I think we should be hammering into folks every day that Republicans stood by this man for tax cuts, and judges let him run loose on our government, and there were a lot of them who sided with him after January 6th. Party of criminals, indeed. Evan Flo, pretty cool report. Trump is going to be submitted as evidence in court.
Well, apparently he's going to get a mugshot this time. So, can't wait.
Not sure if the MR crew has ever mentioned this, but Jimmy Dore's wife, Steph Zamorano, has been a teacher in California for 20 plus years. Majority Report should have on Todd Glass or Frank Conniff to talk about what a piece of garbage Dore is. Correction, Steph retired in 2018. What's that? Well, I don't understand what the relevance is.
Yeah, there's a kind of two disconnected
random
things.
I guess because his wife used to be a teacher, it's like
I mean, a lot of teachers have bad politics. I don't.
Anonymous, I saw the report. It was beautiful. It was the most irrefutable report you've ever seen. Should we talk about? Let's talk about RFK on abortion. Right now, RFK is the second highest polling Democrat in the Democratic primary. I think polls have him somewhere around 12 to 16 points, depending on which poll it is. I'm not sure what the averages are these days. It clearly has gone down a little bit since he's gotten into the race, in part because he seems to be running on, were there a Republican platform, as opposed to just saying we agree with whatever Donald Trump says. He appears largely to be running a campaign to appeal to Republican voters, as if he was running for, I don't know, an outside chance of becoming Donald Trump's vice presidential candidate. Like I've said over and over again in announcing a unity ticket, and here's Robert F. Kennedy. I've got a bunch of ideas about that. But here he is, and this is super disappointing because, well, one, we should just say the headline, I think, on NBC that was reporting this was incorrect, and maybe we can show that after this. But this is at the Iowa State Fair, NBC News' Ali Vitale asked RFK Jr. about whether he would sign a bill into law that would protect federal law that would protect abortions along the lines of Roe v. Wade, which of course was amended by Casey, which basically said you could not, that women have and people who can have children have a constitutional right to an abortion up to 20 weeks, I think it was, if I remember correctly. And after that, states could constrain it, because it is widely considered that fetuses are not viable outside of the womb until 20 to 24 weeks.
Would you sign a federal protection to protect the rights that were in the Roe precedent if you were president?
I believe that a decision to abort a child should be up to the women during the first 3 months of life.
So you would cap it at 15 weeks?
Yes.
Or 21 weeks?
Yeah, for 3 months.
So 3 months. You would sign a federal cap on that?
Yes, I would.
Okay. So not unlimited access to abortion, as many in the Democratic Party?
I think the states, once a child is viable outside the womb, I think then the state has an interest in protecting that child. That supersedes, and I think that the state has an interest at every level, but at some point, I'm for medical freedom. I think individuals ought to be able to make their own choices.
Which is why I'm surprised to hear you say you'd cap it.
Well, because, I think at some point you'd say, the state, I would personally not. I think the states have a right to protect a child once the child becomes viable. That right increases, and I think there's very, very few abortions that are performed after that period of time anyway. Most abortions are performed during the first 3 months of life, and I think that's when, I feel I fought harder than anybody in this country for medical freedom.
And that's why I will restrict their freedom.
Well,
to 15 weeks.
He said 3 months, and that's closer to 12
doing
weeks.
the math here.
Doing the math.
Well, then he said, or she said 15, I guess.
Well, first of all, she used very weird language, a cap. I've never heard anybody refer to that as a cap. But pop up this headline. It says RFK Jr. said he'd sign a federal ban on abortions after 3 months of pregnancy. Now, I want to make it clear. He did not say that. What he did say is that he would not sign a federal right to an abortion under Roe v. Wade. And like I say, Roe v. Wade, amended by Casey in 92, I think it had it down to 23 weeks?
It was 28 with Roe, I think, and 23 to 24 with Casey.
Yes, and so because that is what is determined at the time of Roe, 28 was the viability, and then in Casey in 92, it was bumped up to 23 weeks, I think it was, viability. So He's not spent a lot of time thinking about this at all. Now, just to be clear, he's running for president.
Yeah, that or Medicare for all, oddly. He just hasn't really
Well, no,
thought
Medicare
about
for all, he is basically said
Write that off,
impossible.
yeah.
He's already written it off. We played that video the other
I
day.
know, but he didn't seem to have like a very he was
He's not running on it.
vacillating between single payer or saying no, and then I mean it just
No,
was not
he-
a clear answer. So
he was very
He's
clear.
no.
I'm not going to pursue single payer health insurance, and he doesn't even think a public option is worth expending any of his political cachet on. But here and then he walks it back, and he says he misunderstood the question, and he does not support legislation banning abortion, but again, he's also not answering the question. The question is, would you sign federal legislation that essentially creates the Roe v. Wade standard, amended by Casey, into federal law? Would you sign legislation that would do that? This is legislation that people have been, lamenting Democrats didn't pursue under Obama.
And this is, to be clear, for like basically a right to privacy for an abortion, not like a right to an abortion. Like the state's not going to help you if you're, say, price discriminated from getting an abortion.
Correct. Right. The right to choose an abortion as opposed to providing abortions as a right. Whereas, there are other, public schooling is a right in this country under, statutory. And so Kennedy, first of all, NBC writes the wrong headline. And then Kennedy's response is also very evasive. Because because Kennedy's now able to say, like, no, I'm not supporting a federal ban on abortion. But he's also not supporting a federal statute to make Roe, amended by Casey, the law of the land. In other words, to inhibit states from curtailing the right to get an abortion anytime before 23 weeks of pregnancy. And in fact, he would drop it down to 12, as he says.
15, 21 weeks, 3 months, whatever.
that's just a Republican position.
That is a.
Republicans have thought about it more.
They've passed that in states.
That's their stated position, at least. And then you have their real position was that they actually do want to codify their bans into federal law.
Let's talk about the practical implications of something like that.
Yeah.
There's a story in Time magazine yesterday about
content warning. Also.
Yes. Content warning. This is a disturbing story. It is the story of, they call her Ashley. That's not her real name because she's 13 years old. And in the fall of 2022, according to Time magazine, she was raped by a stranger in the yard outside her home. She, for weeks, didn't tell anybody what happened, not even her mom.
She was doing TikToks in her backyard.
And she had been doing that, and then all of a sudden, just like one day, refused to leave her room because she was terrified. She turned 13 that November. Remember, this was in the fall. She was feeling sick. Mother didn't know what it was. Mother says that she didn't want to tell me. At one point, Regina even asked, this is the mother, also not a real name, asked Ashley if she was pregnant. Ashley said nothing. The mother had not yet explained to her daughter how a baby is made because she didn't think Ashley was old enough to understand. Tell your kids very young, incidentally. 6 is really the appropriate age.
It protects them.
They need to be kids, Regina says. It does protect them. And she doesn't think Ashley even realized what had happened to her could lead to a pregnancy. They finally took her to a doctor. Doctor ordered an ultrasound, determined Ashley was 10 or 11 weeks along. It was surreal for her. She had no clue. At their second visit, about a week later, that would be week 12. Regina tentatively asked Balthrop if there was any way to terminate Ashley's pregnancy. Oh, and incidentally, no proof that it was a rape. There's no proof that it's a rape. No doctor in a state where there's supposedly a rape exception would terminate this girl's pregnancy because there is no proof there is a rape. There is no court case. There is no conviction. There is no even prima facie case that it's statutory rape because you don't know if maybe it was a 14-year-old. There is no rape exception in this story, but that's not the only problem. 7 months earlier, Balthrop could have directed Ashley to an abortion clinic in Memphis, 90 minutes north, or in Jackson, Mississippi, 2.5 hours south. But today, Ashley lives in the heart of abortion ban America. Incidentally, this story appears in Time magazine, like I say. In 2018, Republican lawmakers in Mississippi enacted a ban on most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, not 12. Law, of course, in 2018 was blocked by a federal judge, but it immediately kicked in after the court overturned Roe v. Wade. So the doctor told Regina, that's the mom, that the closest abortion provider for Ashley, the 13-year-old girl, would be in Chicago. At first, Regina thought that she and Ashley could drive there, but it's a 9-hour trip, and Regina would have to take off work. She'd have to pay for gas, for food, and a place to stay for a couple of nights, not to mention the cost of the abortion itself. I don't have the funds for all this, she says. And Ashley did what girls with no other options do. She did nothing. And now, as she's heading back to 7th grade, that's what 13-year-olds do, she's a mom. The mother had no way of raising the funds, had no way of paying the costs associated with it, had no way of, didn't want to lose her job. This is more than 24% of women in Mississippi have no birthing hospital within 30-minute drive.
Yeah, I was about to say it's also a doctor desert in Mississippi in general for all other kinds of care as well.
I mean, this is the reality. All of the hemming and hawing about icky to get an abortion, need to compromise,
politicized hoaxes.
Yeah, I mean, all of it. All of it. This is the reality of it.
Yep. I mean, this you said this before, but I just want to read the part that the reporter delineates here. Mississippi's abortion ban contains narrow exceptions, including for rape victims and to save the life of the mother. As Ashley's case shows, these exceptions are largely theoretical. Even if a victim files a police report, there appears to be no clear process for granting an exception. The state attorney general's office did not return Time's repeated requests to clarify the process for granting exceptions. The Mississippi Board of Medical Licensure and the Mississippi State Medical Association did not reply to Time's request for explanation. And of course, there are no abortion providers left in the state. In January, the New York Times reported that since Mississippi's abortion law went into effect, only 2 exceptions have been made. Even if the process for obtaining one were clear, it wouldn't have helped Ashley. Regina didn't know that Mississippi's abortion ban had an exception for rape. And that's part of it. It's chilling effects stuff.
Oh, these theocrats don't need the law, the letter of the law to do their work. They don't care. They know that just passing a law, keeping it vague enough, in Texas, it could just be like even the threat of someone bringing a suit. That's the way their book banning stuff works. They don't have to have the letter of the law prevent you from saying the word gay in the classroom. What they need to have is an apparatus set up to make the cost associated with the idea that you might say gay in the classroom be so onerous that you don't do it, or your administrators say don't do it.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game here. They came up with these trap laws, which were targeted restrictions on abortion providers. That's what they used to use, which was, we're not outlawing abortions. You just need to have them in a room that's octagonal and has a 14-foot ceiling. I'm not joking about this stuff. 14-foot ceiling. The doors have to be 48 inches wide in the entrance. I mean, all these things just to make it, to put up barriers. I mean, we see states do the same thing with like unemployment insurance or stuff like this. I mean, all of this, there is a method to this madness, and they know exactly what they're doing, and this is what it ends up with. So
the cruelty is the point. They want to punish you. And I just want to read this final paragraph of the piece because they interviewed the girl and the mother here. There's only one moment when Ashley smiles a little, and it's when she describes the nurses she met in the doctor's office and delivery room. One of them she remembers was nice and cool, in quotes. She has decided that when she grows up, she wants to be a nurse too, to help people, she says. For a second, she looks like any other soon-to-be 7th grader sharing her childhood dream. Then Peanut stirs in his car again, car seat. That's the nickname for the child. Regina says he needs to be fed. Ashley's face goes blank again. She is a mother now.
Sick. And like, start your stopwatch for the next time this is going to happen.
Yep. I mean, we don't know how many times this has happened, right?
Yep,
I mean, you
exactly.
think about like the confluence of these things where it's not like there's reporters walking all around these states looking for these cases. And
It's not like I'd go to a reporter if that happened to somebody.
And it's not like, you're gonna go to a reporter. There's undoubtedly more of these. Undoubtedly. Maya. So when the mom in the movie said in the maudlin tone, "I'm not saving him, he's saving me," she meant financially. She should have broken the fourth wall and said, like, literally, he's saving me a shit ton of money. This is the...
in The Blind Side.
Yeah. Drew P. Balls. Okay. I remember reading that in the Intercept report, they did not independently verify the leaked Pakistani cable, nor has the Pakistani government confirmed its authenticity. Is that still the case? As far as I know, in that report, they've got no response from the Pakistanis. Is it possible that two things can be true? Neutrality is effectively pro-Russian invasion, and it's wrong to extort Pakistan to oust Khan? I mean, I think both those things can be true. Again,
it's a little bit reductive, I think, of other countries.
We're not in the West.
Attitudes towards this.
Well, yeah, right.
I mean, even if you don't, I don't know that it's effectively pro-Russian necessarily even. But again, I got no problem extorting Israel if it is articulated U.S. policy to stop putting illegal settlements in the West Bank, to pull back on settlements that are already there, or to, provide citizenship rights to Palestinians. I mean, to do any of those things. So, I'm not 100% sure I have an issue necessarily with having U.S. policy trying to promote U.S. policy. I may disagree with it, but I'm talking like the principle itself. Again, I'm okay with Joe Biden saying to Netanyahu, you're going to be a very lonely man if you don't stop doing these illegal things. It really is a question of what is the issue.
But part of the reason all these countries just generically might not be, rushing to support the United States in a foreign policy dispute is because they do things like this behind the backs of the governments.
Right. Well, I mean, I think this is more a story about the U.S. working with the military in Pakistan to undercut the democratic process. And that is more problematic to me.
Yeah, and that's yeah.
Like I
think a lot of the countries feel ambivalent about Russia's invasion.
When I read this, it feels like the U.S. is reacting to requests from the Pakistan military than it is the other way around. Like the U.S. is basically saying like, we're allied with the Pakistan military. We don't care about the civilian leadership. And if the Pakistan military says it would be helpful to us if you, provide political pressure to oust Khan, then the U.S. says like, okay. Mm. And I have a problem with the anti-democratic nature of that. It's another thing to say like, your country is going to be very, isolated if you do X, Y, or Z. I may disagree with what the policy is, the United States policy, but I'm not like, countries do this all the time. There are negotiations that go all these different ways.
But America's influence behind democracy, I think, is more of a reason why countries are not aligned in issues like this than that they support Russia's invasion.
Well, Pakistan has, national interests that involve Russia in a way that, other countries don't. And, all these countries are operating in their own best interests. It's just that the anti-democratic nature of what we're doing when we align more with the military than the popularly elected leaders is problematic. And I get the sense that the Ukraine stuff was not a complete red herring, but it was a convenient sort of hat to hang their, peg to hat their hang their hat on. But I don't know. That's just from what I'm reading in between it. WTF Cody, currently using Liquid IV to fight my sweet tea addiction. It's helped me so much to ease my liquid sugar calorie intake. I'm definitely an all-day sipper. Great. Many women just completely disappear once they're found to be pregnant. Some are sadly killed by their partners. It's almost like some men desperately don't want children as well and will go to extreme lengths to prevent it. Mark Monkey. Hey, everyone. I use my mediocre hacking skills to see the drafts of the rest of Trump's truth post that he didn't post. My irrefutable evidence stands to put these uppity riggers in their rightful place.
Oh, man.
Trump's plans to show even the rigor lovers that when you mess with Trump, you mess with America. Hey, boy. All right.
Yeah, you went there. I mean, we sort of did, so.
Fizzy drinks. I get all my medical advice from Joe Rogan and Jimmy Dore.
Oy.
What else should we do here?
Oh,
let's do the UAW.
Yeah.
This is good news. I mentioned yesterday there was about and a lot of this is gearing up. Like, I think we're a month and a half away. Is it the end of September?
No, a month. September 14th is
September 14th.
So literally almost exactly a month. Yeah.
September 14th is the deadline for a UAW contract. A lot of this also has to do with electric vehicles because more and more electric vehicles are going to be produced, and car companies are trying to make these non-unionized. Here is, where are we?
Number 8.
This is number 8.
This is posted on the UAW Twitter account. It's an announcement here, as you find it, that 660 workers at the LM manufacturing plant in Detroit have voted by supermajority to join the UAW Local 600. So this is just another example of hot labor summer union solidarity.
It's awesome. Like every time I see one of these, you just think of like what must have preceded it and like the conversations and stuff like that. And it's, I think, really inspiring.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, this is like a logistics company that probably, like works out like, gets ball bearings from the supplier to the car companies. I don't know. That's my guess. But go ahead.
We're at LM Manufacturing. We work under Ford and we build seats for the Bronco and Ranger. This week was excellent. We formed our union officially. Proud to be a member. It's been a great change.
Overwhelming that people wanted a union there. They're excited. We're excited. The locals excited because 660 new members, tremendous.
This right here is like stresses the biggest thing I ever been a part of in my life is UAW.
2 months ago, organizing department in UAW Local 600 started an organizing drive here at LM Manufacturers. The workers reached out with a desire to improve their working conditions, and the UAW responded.
We'll be sitting down and negotiate their first contract coming up.
I'm just excited the UAW, we won. We got UAW on our side.
It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like our voice is heard. You know, it makes us feel like we accomplished something.
It's like a second win. Some people was ready to give up and go find another job, but this kind of gave them more hope to stay.
It's a good feeling. It's a really, really good feeling to know that change is coming.
Nos sentimos demasiado bien. Es un alivio muy grande para nosotros, no solamente para mí, para todos mis compañeros, en especial los compañeros latinos, porque sentimos que vamos a tener un respaldo y vamos a tener personas que en realidad van a valorar el trabajo que venimos a hacer día a día y que van a velar por nosotros y por nuestros derechos.
If you ever in a position to unionize a job, never be scared, never shy away, look danger in the face. Nothing comes easy. This is something that everybody earned to do. So don't shy away from the UAW if they come for your job. You better run to them.
The interesting thing about this is, if you remember, and I guess it was like, 3 or 4 years ago now, I interviewed these authors of this book called Wrecked, which talked about the shift in Detroit away from, I should say, the just-in-time supply lines. They used the way that Detroit used to build cars was that they would have all these companies around Detroit that were building what they needed. Smaller companies. Here's your ball bearings. Here's we're assembling the seats. This is we make the thing for the gearbox that allows it to go, the transmission. And what it would do, because it was just in time, in other words, they would manufacture it and it would go right over to the factory and be built, is that if there was a design flaw, they'd be able to respond super quickly. Whatever, the clutch is sticking. We need to adjust this one little piece. And it's not like they've got 1 million of those pieces already built and it's going to cost them any money. They just make the adjustment. But what the car manufacturers found, and the Japanese were really in awe of this, incidentally, because it's why there was such high quality of U.S. cars, 50s and 60s. However, what the car companies found is that a small outfit like this one, LM Manufacturing, could go on strike and could stop the production line of their entire output of cars, or the majority of their output of cars. So, if you can unionize a 600-person shop and you get 150, 200 people and, who are like gung-ho about a strike, and you can get, 305 or 1 of them to vote for, authorize a strike, you could shut down a car company, or at least at that time. And so what they did is they dispersed all of the workers around, they started subcontracting out further away from Detroit. And they, instead of doing just-in-time supply lines, they would bulk up. So they would house a lot of these parts because they wanted to disempower the union. It wasn't even necessarily as much for money. They just wanted to disempower the union because they were afraid of them. And of course, what happened is American cars turned to garbage because they did not have the ability to react to any type of design flaws because they had already paid for.
Bought them in bulk.
Yeah. we've got 500,000 widgets here, so we're not going to be able to change these widgets until we put them all in the cars, and they put out junky cars.
Yeah.
So seeing small outfits like this unionize have an outsized impact on the leverage that the UAW has in terms of like the bigger fight for these car companies. So keep that in mind.
And for all the talk about like the decline of Detroit or cities like that were centered in many ways around car manufacturing, it's the story is that it's because good paying union jobs were gutted in those areas. And this resurgence is like incredibly encouraging, obviously. And we'll see what happens, I guess, ahead of that September 14th deadline. But it's probably the potentially second biggest labor action to happen this year, and since the UPS strike was averted.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So huge news if that does end up happening. And yeah.
Just a reminder, actors still on strike, 160,000 strong, another 10 or 11,000 writers. You know how Matt Walsh always jokes around by saying, like, oh, the Media Matters is calling me a fascist. Who's called me a white supremacist today?
He has theocratic fascist in his Twitter bio, ironically, of course.
That's
ironically.
so funny.
But, you know, part of the reason why you do that ironically is the same. There's sort of a punk situationist quality to it. What the Sex Pistols did, based upon McLaren's reading of the Situationists in Guy Debord, was to build the critique into the that which would be critiqued. And if you build the critique into it, in other words, like for the Sex Pistols, their inability to play instruments well was part of the charm, if you will. The fact that they couldn't play.
The fact that the show sometimes has technical difficulties.
Yes, we do that here, without a doubt. Oh, the reason why I was like, we got to do this live is because I don't want to spend any time editing. I don't want to have to, like, I'm not going to pay somebody to take all the ahs and ums out of what I'm doing. I'm not going to make any money.
It'll only be a 20-minute show.
It'll be like a 20-minute show, and it's going to cost me, like, I'm going to have to pay to do the show. There's going to be so many editors working on taking those things out.
AI might be able to.
So what you're saying is you're punk as hell.
What I'm saying is the reason why Matt Walsh puts into his Twitter bio, what is it again?
Theocratic fascist.
Yeah, is because he knows one day it's going to be quite obvious he's a theocratic fascist.
One day?
Well, that's part of the...
Most days, it might be obvious that he's a theocratic fascist.
Lance over at the Surfs has uncovered some audio of Matt Walsh back in 2011.
Which was just him doing a show, right?
No, I don't think it was him doing a show. It was a hot mic.
No. This was from this is from a radio show that he.
Oh, it was from a radio show.
Maybe as in it's with his co-host.
Andrew
He's speaking with his co-host.
Okay, because I guess it's from WZBH Radio, but I thought it was sort of like off because
it's with his host. It might not be on air, but it's with his co-host.
Right.
From the
I think
radio
it's
show.
not. I think it was during commercial breaks. I have a feeling is what we're hearing.
Well, that's
because the audio on the original is really, really bad. But Lance has pumped it up. Walsh sounds a little bit different, but you will recognize his voice. And he's talking to his co-host, Andrew Crank Murr. And there's a couple of clips of this. It's
Walshy and the Crank.
Walsh and the Crank. It's mornings on WZBH Radio, where you get the best of the fascists. Here it is.
Bringing the culture with them, of course they're going to. Of course they're going to. That's what makes them Mexican. Of course they will. That is not.
I'm saying if they stop identifying themselves as just Mexicans, and they start, appreciating the country that they currently reside.
What is the country? I mean,
America.
Well, then, what does that mean? If you take away the Anglo-Saxon culture, which is what started this damn country.
Yeah, but
not damn country.
You can adopt philosophies. Is my point. So
That's Matt Walsh speaking right there, right? His
Yes.
voice sounds different.
It sounds a little bit different. You can hear the pattern of him speaking, but it sounds a little bit different. But also part of it is because it's the audio is so amped up.
Right.
But
I can tell it's him. You can tell.
you can tell it's him.
Yeah.
Yes. Anglo-Saxon nature of the country. Go ahead.
Biggest nerds in the world.
Of course they will. That is not. I'm saying if they stop identifying themselves as just Mexicans and they start, appreciating the country that they currently reside.
What is the country? I mean,
America.
Well, then, what does that mean? If you take away the Anglo-Saxon culture, which is what started this damn country.
Yeah, but you.
Not damn country.
You can adopt philosophies, is my point. So I'm confused by race or culture. Like, what are you promoting?
Both. You can't separate them. They're the same. What I'm saying is not like I'm making this up. This has just been the case. Go back through history. This is just the way it works. Is that a country is more than just a border. It's more than just a supply. If all America was just like a plot of land we happen to be sitting on, then it would mean nothing to me. Okay. But because it's also identified with a way of thinking, a way of life, a culture, a philosophy.
Pause it for 1 second. I just be clear. I just want to reiterate. This recording is from 2011, not from 1775.
Because he says there, race and culture, you can't separate them, and then goes on to say that the United States has a distinct culture. That's
An
why
Anglo-Saxon
one that
culture.
he loves.
Now,
It's so weird. It's so weird that that's what that's his take there, because that means, and I'm just trying to reach the logical conclusion, that he feels like the only legitimate culture that is American is one that is a white Anglo-Saxon vision. Is it not true that would be the natural conclusion one would draw?
without a doubt. And to be clear, when the country was founded, there wasn't just white people here. Even if you go back to who was in charge, it may have been just white people, white men, who were signing the Declaration of Independence. But if you're talking about a country and you're talking about who's here, it wasn't just white people.
Yeah.
But that's that's the culture that he's talking about. We only have a white culture in this country, according to him.
Sitting on, that it would mean nothing to me. Okay. But because it's also identified with a way of thinking, a way of life, a culture, a philosophy, because that was all there, and it was an Anglo-Saxon thing, then that's what I identify with. It's not the location and the geography that I identify with. Yeah, I like the rolling hills and I like the purple mountains, majesty, and all that too. But what I like most is the culture and philosophy that was distinctly Western Anglo-Saxon, and that's what it was. And so when these other groups come and you say, well, as long as they don't but they have brought their culture with them. So you can say as long as they don't, but they have and they will continue to. So let's forget about that, because that's exactly what they're doing. And of course, why wouldn't they, when the original inhabitants, the original inhabitants, of course, were Native Americans, but forget about them for a second, everyone else has. When the original inhabitants of at least the United States of America are dying off because we've decided we're too cool to have kids, then why wouldn't they bring their culture? Because there's a cultural void. What I'm saying is that when we die off, as we have been, we have left a cultural void, and that void will be filled with this other hodgepodge of cultures. And I'll tell you something else. When you have just a geographical location, when there's no agreement at all.
This guy talking about culture, he embodies the cultural degradation of this country. I'm not a William F. Buckley fan. I think people masturbate over how valuable it is to hear the opposite side in Buckley's position in that. But Matt Walsh is a definite downgrade.
Oh my God!
Over
without a doubt,
as talented as Ben Shapiro,
right,
on his own network.
And so sorry, man, you've embodied what you're concerned about.
Well, I mean, even on his own terms, what possible difference does that make? If you're saying that there's a cultural void, then what possible difference does it make? I mean, you had no problem with the replacing of the culture that existed here before Anglo-Saxons came in and decided to
but that was
steal
righteous,
the country.
Because we were more mighty, whites with guns and our might. But then why then if that's the case, as you say, Sam, then he should be accepting of other people coming in, because that's just the
natural order of things.
Yeah, right.
But that is the part that like makes him an unequivocal white supremacist. Because when the white people came in and eliminated the existing culture through, let's be clear, violence.
Yeah.
It's okay. But the idea that when white people, according to him, refuse to have kids by their own dumbness and create a cultural void, I mean, this is just like taking it on his own terms. Because the whole race culture thing is really...
It's in bullshit.
It's the updated version of saying one race is smarter than the other. It's just one culture is better than the other.
But putting that aside, even based upon his own thing, it reveals his white supremacy. I mean, like...
Totally.
Virulent white supremacy. Is there more on this one?
This is the second one. On what's important to you, what your values are and all that, that country cannot exist for very long. And that's where civil wars come from. That's why we fought the Civil War to begin with, was because there was a cultural difference between the North and the South. And we're going to be heading that way again if we don't say, okay, this is who we are.
Pause it for 1 second. What was the cultural difference? Was it? I remember when all of those. This to be clear, that it was the Republicans in this instance in the North who were like, the mint julep upsets me so much, and this whole thing with like all of their small talk.
Yeah, they're please and thank you.
Hospitality.
Oh, come on in. Let me get you a drink.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you. Well, what a pleasure. I can't stand that.
The punch bowl.
Let's get those cannons going.
Lemonade on the porch. Time for war.
It was a culture war that became a civil war. My God. Go ahead.
On what's important to you, what your values are and all that, that country cannot exist for very long. And that's where civil wars come from. That's why we fought the Civil War to begin with, was because there was a cultural difference between the North and the South. And we're going to be heading that way again if we don't say, okay, this is who we are. And by the way, the people saying this is who we are need to be plentiful and strong.
I agree.
And potent.
I just personally feel that you don't have to be an Anglo-Saxon to continue that line of thought. I just think people need to be more patriotic about the country in which they live, know more about its heritage and where it came from and how it sprang about. I mean, I married somebody that's, I don't think Maria's Anglo-Saxon, and she definitely has left her culture at the door. So, I mean, if Maria and I have 5 kids, like now I'm confused. Am I perpetuating the problem or
see, you keep bringing this up and it makes me look like I'm making some racist point. I know you say that's what you're trying to do, but that's obviously not what I'm saying. Have relations and kids with whoever you fall in love with. That's great. As long as it's the same gender. I'm fine with that. All I'm saying is that
what did he say?
I think he meant to say as long as they're a different gender, but he said as long as they're the same gender.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously not what I'm saying.
Love is love, except for when it's not.
Like now I'm confused. Am I perpetuating the problem or
see, you keep bringing this up and it makes me look like I'm making some racist point. I know you say that's what you're trying to do, but that's obviously not what I'm saying. Have relations and kids with whoever you fall in love with. That's great. As long as it's the same gender. I'm fine with that. All I'm saying is that as a general rule, for our culture and our identity to continue, we need to just procreate and keep that culture going. Because you say, well, come over here and have some patriotism and identify with us. Why should they identify with us when we don't identify with us? When it's not even important enough to us to procreate and continue our culture, why should they give a damn about it? They don't. I don't blame them. I mean,
it's also conflating sort of like nationality with culture, which of course is him conflating nationality with race. It's essentially what he's doing. I mean, that's exactly what he's doing.
And it's the white Anglo-Saxon that part that he loved, which when you put that together, that's called it's the nationalism, and then the white Anglo-Saxon part. And then
it's almost like you call it like white nationalism.
I mean, that's a great point, Sam.
But it's funny because it's like such nerdy white nationalism where I think I'm excluded from this. I don't think I don't descend from Anglo-Saxon people. It's like Bohemian or whatever the hell. Like, it's funny to like be so exclusive that like you're cutting out like even like people who like have their entire lives been consider themselves white.
He doesn't even recognize how racist he is in this. It's fascinating, and his like
Stop making me feel racist.
and the guy named the Crank is just like laying out what he's saying, and when he hears it back, he's like, "That sounds racist." I'm not saying anything like that.
Right.
I'm just saying that if we don't, and by we I mean white people, don't keep having children, then the non-white people are going to replace us. I mean, this guy's going to stumble in, and like if you give this guy enough time, he's literally it's like if you put like 5 monkeys into like a room, like he's gonna end up like basically just writing out Mein Kampf without realizing it.
Yeah, make like a clan hoods.
Go back a little bit.
Continue, we need to just procreate and keep that culture going. Because you say, well, come over here and have some patriotism and identify with us. Why should they identify with us when we don't identify with us? When it's not even important enough to us to procreate and continue our culture, why should they give a damn about it? They don't. I don't blame them. I mean, what exact philosophy and values have we shown that are so important to us?
But I mean, I think the point is that if you're patriotic Americans that love the country, that have ingrained themselves in this country for several generations, need to start promoting more generations of people.
But it's easy to say these vague things like, well, promote and do this and that. But it's the reality. If we actually want to talk about how to solve the problem, it's real simple, but it involves us all actually doing something, which, like I said a million times now, is frankly just having kids and passing that down to your kids.
Passing down the whiteness. I mean, remember, again, culture equals race to him. And you cannot, and culture also equals patriotism and nationality. I mean, like...
Imagine having a kid and here's my cultural vessel.
Well, that's exactly how I've spoken about and said how these conservative parents are just like essentially narcissists in the way they conceive of having their kids. They want them to be extensions of themselves. And in like Matt Walsh's case, that's whiteness. But it's also shows how childbirth, it's like an existential thing if you're a white nationalist. And it makes it a lot easier for you to understand why abortion is used or they want to limit it so aggressively, because in their mind, women are there to be the vessels for the continuation of the values that they want to impose on the world.
Is that it? Is there more? There's like 30 seconds. Yeah, let's listen to the last one.
If you don't do that, then you're not helping the problem. Sorry, you're not. You're not helping. I mean, we can all say how we'll just promote the values of this and that. But the way you promote values is to have children and pass it on to them.
What?
And if you don't do that, then it's just vague platitudes that mean nothing. I mean, I'm sorry. It's just what it is. And, and I'm no exemption from that. I mean, if I'm 40 and I haven't had a single kid, then I haven't helped. Everyone will make their own. I'm just talking in general. The way in general that this country will reclaim itself, that's the way. Or we can become extinct. If that's the route we choose.
We Anglo-Saxons.
Hey, it was a good run. Got a good 300 years out of it, almost.
In other words, if the country becomes less white, or as he says, to be fair, with different cultures and races and nationalities, even if they come in and switch their nationalities to American, they're still like culturally and racially not part of the thing. And this is where his whole like little sort of thing breaks down. If people of different races or cultures come into this country, there is no evolution of this country. There's only death. That's his argument. We're extinct. That's his argument.
I can't wait till Anglo-Saxons are extinct.
Also, the imperative of having children is why he's like, you got to have a bunch of children, which is why I think he was advocating, somewhat after this. But a couple of years ago, when he was sitting in his car out in front of a high school, that, 16 is, you're fertile.
Get them early. Get them in early. I mean, if you want to repopulate the United States, you got to start getting girls pregnant at like 13, 14, 15. If you're really serious about it. Right when they hit puberty. When they're at their most fertile. I mean, are we going to ask?
Anglo-Saxon.
Are we going to ask them? No, but they're doing their duty.
There's Matt Walsh before he
Under
discovered the multi-level marketing program of transphobia. All right, let's read some IMs and then we'll get out of here. Sorry, folks, we didn't have time for calls today. It's just one of those days.
This is your last show before you're gone for like 2 weeks.
I know it. All right, 5 more of these IMs. Colleen from Connecticut. Is Burgess still going on about I'm not anti-trans, but what the conservatives are saying sounds really bad and I don't care enough trans people to look up what these known liars are lying about? I don't know what that means, to be honest with you, but I don't know. Thomas in Seattle. The app on Apple keeps pausing for no reason. The last several times I've tried to listen live. Okay. Have not heard any other complaints, but Sam's mailman. Matt, you mentioned the other day you don't call yourself a communist because you aren't registered with the Communist Party. What do you see as the value of labels like communism or socialism versus the value of eschewing such labels?
I think, the labels, I don't really care what people call me, but I will emphasize like socialism, for instance, because I think you need to have a ultimately like revolutionary, whether it's, through parliamentary or some other kind of break with capitalism. Capitalism can't be deciding the economic priorities of the world, and that needs to be entirely overthrown. So like when people say progressive as opposed to socialist, that's not entirely my politics, because I feel like that is a little bit more of, all this stuff can coexist peacefully. We just need to get the right balance. And I think like that I'm not convinced that's a reality.
Did you guys see the Slate article on Marie Gluskamp? Says DC letter carrier. I did not. What is that?
We talked about
Alex Salmon wrote a piece about her. She's like kind of the Kirsten Sinema analog.
We covered it.
Yeah, we discussed it on Friday.
We played a clip of her and laughed at her.
DC letter carrier. Wasn't there talk of Biden being able to open up abortion clinics on federal property? We should keep pressuring him to do all he can on the issue. Mm-hmm. I think there was talk of that. I don't know where that's at right now. I think they're probably, I don't know. The hard part too would also be getting a doctor there.
Yeah.
Dave from Jamaica. As a person with conservative friends, they're very hard to maintain because they're very, very annoying. General population Trump would be kind of funny. LOL. Emma Trump hiding out in Russia. That'll be hilarious.
I mean, I really think it's there's a non-zero chance that something like that happens.
Man, RFK sounding very anti-establishment. That's sarcasm. Parents, please teach your kids about how sex works as early as you can. How sex works as early as you can. It will protect them long term. Joe Rogan, health advice. 3 as he steps to enlarge heart. Jimmy's in the larger liver section. These nerds. What is Anglo-Saxon culture? Raiding the Britons? Gettysburg Address. These Southerners are too polite. Being going on for 77 years. All right, and 2 more. Badly drawn bear. I have very French-sounding last name. Even after I explained both sides, my family arrived during the 1600s. People insist that I am French to this day. And the final I am of the day. Gerald from New Orleans. I guess if I want my IMs read, I should send them in as Haywood Jablomi.
Hey. Great.
That's a great one to end, to send me off.
Straight from 1987.
There you go. Bradley, Matt, Emma, great job today. Folks, Emma will be here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive,